Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. You know, the longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. We're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, you know, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, joined tonight by the legend, Kenny Simpson.
How about that?
The man, the myth, the legend.
If you ask my wife, she would not call me that. So
I don't know, man. I think the whole world does at this point.
We'll see.
Kenny and I are joined tonight by the Adair head coach. First year head coach, right?
Yes, sir. First year.
Oh, that's awesome. Brady Bradberry is joining us tonight from just down the highway from where I'm sitting. So finally gotten a real local guy on the show.
Yeah,
Coach, man, we're super glad to have you. I don't want to screw up your introduction, so I'm just going to let you do it. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your coaching journeys look like and where you're at now.
All right. Well, I'm Brady Bradberry, as you guys said. I graduated from Adair in 2013. I walked on at Pittsburgh State to play football. I know you had Coach Graham on that played up there as well. Spent 6 years there. Got hurt 1 year, redshirted 1 year. Was going to stay and do the GA route through the college. Had it all built when I had my first son. Our superintendent at Adair happened to be my high school coach, called me and took the job. Was the quarterback coach, outside linebacker for a year, then became the OC for the last 3 years, and this year was my first year being head coach. So pretty short, so hopefully I kept it under a minute.
That's a good one. So a couple of years ago when I was at J, me and Coach ended up having to go again. I was the DC, he was the OC, so look at that. And, it was what a shootout it was that night. I did not do my job. Wow. He did.
Yeah, you got turnovers. That's what it's about now. So
there you go. Oh man, what a night! Well, Coach, man, we're super glad to have you on the show. Thanks for reaching out, and he's a living testament. If you want to come on the show and you know what you're talking about, shoot us an email or a text or a call or whatever, and we'll get you on the show. Coach Simpson, you just got back from Europe.
I did.
How was that?
I did, man. It was pretty cool. My daughter's a senior, and so. I don't have a lot of, I don't hunt or collect things. I waste my money on traveling. I guess if you're going to waste it, I think that's a good thing to do. And so she's kind of grown up doing that. She's actually been to Italy when she was younger. And so for her senior year, she wanted to go back. Our school offers a trip. So it was a school trip with a couple of her friends. And we went to Italy and we went to Greece. And, I'd encourage any coaches that are listening to this, there's lots of opportunities in that. If you want to lead trips where you can make it affordable for yourself and your family to go. I know I used to lead these trips. And so there are companies you work with where you lead a trip and so many people come and you get to go for free, and we're able to do that. And then this year I just went as a dad. I just paid for us both to go and just kind of enjoyed being on the trip. It was really cool. And I enjoy seeing Italy. I enjoy seeing Greece, but I mainly went to be with my daughter. It's probably the real last hurrah before she goes off to college. So that was kind of bittersweet at times, because you still see,
For sure.
if you're a young parent, man, it goes quick, and people will tell you that, and it does. So
Right. Well, I saw your picture there at the museum.
my caked up one, yeah. I'm still
your baby got back picture.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. I'm still a kid. My daughter, we're walking around a museum, and I'll get bored in about 20 minutes. I like history. I do like to read. I enjoy studying that stuff. But after about 20 minutes of staring at statues, I'm going to figure out some way to pose and make fun of something. So I think Daniel's referring, if you guys follow us on that Facebook, I think I put on Twitter too, where we found the statue that it looked like whoever that was had been squatting a ton, and so I managed to stand right behind it. We've got pictures of me doing that, or my daughter doing that, or my wife doing that. I got in trouble at the Vatican one year doing that, because I guess the Catholic Church doesn't find it as amusing as I do to pose next to their statues. But to me, just try to have fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well, good, man. Well, that's what you went on the trip for. So I'm glad you found ways to do it.
Yeah.
Well, glad you got back. Got back safely. That flight, especially right now, it seems like there's chaos going on with so many Boeing planes and everything. You never know what plane you're going to get.
Yeah,
so glad you guys got over.
And of course, anytime I go on those long planes, you get like 6 movies you can watch. It's a long day. One of them always is going to be like a Final Destination, or I watched one where the guy's on the airplane. I don't know why. Maybe it's some weird thing I do, but there's always a movie I'm watching with a plane involved in it as you take it off. I think it makes the trip a little more exciting.
I'm the opposite. I take Ambien and go to sleep for that 15-hour trip.
Yeah.
But mine was a little different destination.
Correct.
So. Well, good, man. Well, Coach, before we move on here and get started tonight, why don't you tell us some ways that we can simplify coaching for ourselves and our players?
Coach, do you want to communicate like a pro and experience the best sideline communication system on the market? Then let me introduce you to Procom headsets. Procom is the most clear, durable, and reliable system on the market. From our noise-canceling technology to our coach-to-player communications featuring our patented loudmouth, Procom defeats the competition. Thousands of coaches have made the switch because they have seen, heard, and felt the difference. Let me show you how Procom headsets will make your game day communications a seamless and efficient process. Go to procomwelchman.com and reach out to me. That's PROCOMWELCHMAN.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors FBCoachSimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials, and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors OffensiveCoordinatorAcademy.com, all things offense, and DefensiveCoordinatorAcademy.com, all things defense.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Dell in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com. All right, thank you, Coach. You guys, I know it's spring ball's right around the corner. You're probably not going to use your headsets in spring ball if you even have it. I doubt you're going to break them out for 7-on-7, but practice is just right there. And if you're needing headsets done, that's a good time to get them in, get them worked on, or get new ones. Reach out to Zach. He's going to hook you up. That little loudmouth thing they have, that's pretty neat. If you're a guy that won't go to the box because you can't talk to your quarterback, Well, they've changed that now. They've kind of changed the game on it. Now you can OC from the box and still talk to your quarterback. So it's a great place to consider it. Coach, I know you still got the hat for sale, right?
Yeah, coach caps are going quick. I guess guys are realizing, hey, football season's here. You need to get a boonie cap. And so we've got the cap with the Fox 40 whistle attached to it. If you're going to buy a boonie cap, and I would encourage you, all the coaches, if you're not buying mine, that's fine. There's other hats to get, but take care of your skin. I've had personal bad experience with that. So do that for sure. And if you're like me and you forget your whistle, you go to over coachescap.com, and it's got the bucket hat that's got the UV protection, and it's also got the whistle attached to it. And I think it's the price of what you'd pay for a hat. So you're kind of getting a 2-in-1 there. That's coachescap.com. And then we got the Head Coach Academy that came out maybe about a month ago. So if you are a new head coach or a guy who's been a head coach that maybe just wants a refresher, it's all things non-X and O. So liability, hiring coaches, getting the job, all the crap that nobody wants to learn, but you have to keep your job or to get a job. So again, it's theheadcoachacademy.com. A lot of information, or you get the workbook. That's over there too. And then coming out soon, Daniel, I'm excited about it. It's not out yet, but it will be soon, is we're putting an offensive line academy together. And, man, it's going to be a really, really good one. We got some really good speakers in there talking about O-line drills, talking about different parts of the O-line, gap schemes, the stuff we've been kind of talking about in our podcast. But now we're bringing in dudes that are like really, really good at that and letting them go in depth on those topics. So it's the O-line academy. That'll be out here in the next couple of weeks. So I'll probably be kind of pushing that a little bit. I'm hoping to have it out here, early to mid-April.
Yeah, the sleeveless wonder, Bo Gould himself.
He'll be on there doing two sessions.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. I appreciate him reaching out to me, just check up on me and everything. But it was good to get to talk a little ball with a coach that I know. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. It's a role I'll get to take over this year is for my first year to be the primary O-line coach. And so I'm sure I'll be digging in to try to use it as well.
Yeah, it is.
All right, man, let's get into our questions tonight. So we're going to talk a little 4-2-5 defense, which is new to this podcast because Kenny's ran the 3-4 and I ran the 3-4 this year. Like I said, Coach Bradberry's from right up the road here at Adair, Oklahoma. So we've actually played against each other or coached against each other. But, he's a 4-2-5 guy, and in my heart, I really am too. That's where I cut my teeth. Learning under Joe and using his very, very simple system. And so I thought, why not? Let's break into that and have a little conversation about it. So, Coach Simpson, we'll start with you here first. And just what are the major differences that you see between the 3-4 and the 4-2-5 and the 4-3?
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear what Coach says on this. We ran back in the day. We ran a 4-4. That was when I was coaching probably 20 years ago. I was at DC and we called it a 4-4, but now that's kind of morphed, in my opinion, into a 4-2-5. And so here's what I see, and Coach may have a difference of opinion on this, but to me, when you're running a 4-3, you have 3 true linebacker type kids, and then you have obviously 4 offensive linemen and 4 dedicated DBs. Now I see the game, those 4-2-5 guys, I almost see it as 4 D linemen, 2 dedicated inside backers trying to keep a 6-man box as much as you can, depending on what you get. But for the most part, trying to keep a 6-man box. And then I see those as 5 DBs, where you can have multiple kids that can give different looks, where you can maybe play to the field and put an extra guy to the field, where you can go back and even look like a 3 safety look at times, where you can do you can get to a traditional 4-4 look. Cover 3 if you want to get to that, or you can get to a 2 high look. And so it kind of gives you the ability to get more athletes on the field, in my opinion, over a 4-3. And it gives you more versatility. Those are kind of the 2 things that I see coaching against it. Like if I'm coaching against a 4-3, it is pretty easy for me to manipulate that into a 4-1 box. Like there are ways I can kind of manipulate you into a 4-1 box, or a 4-2-5. You're pretty much going to have 6 in the box at all times. And you're going to be able to move guys around on the back end to try to protect it. And so to me, the major difference is in a 4-2-5, you're making your adjustments with your back 5. Like you're figuring out ways to adjust with your back 5. Or a 4-3, you're making your adjustments with your 3 linebackers. You're sitting in that cover 2 shell, and the 3 linebackers are the guys that have to kind of move to trips or to move to a tight end or move to a whatever. So just again, from the outside looking in, I'm not the expert. We run a 3-4. I'm curious to your coach here. If I was looking between the two of them, if I wanted more flavor, more ability to handle spread teams potentially, or more ability to give versatile looks, or maybe I just want more athletes on the field, I'm looking at a 4-2-5. If I'm wanting a more traditional type defense, I'm going more 4-3, or I don't really want the illusion of different looks. I want to be really good at what I do. Then 4-3 would be kind of a road I would look at. And again, that's just a very, very general viewpoint from it. So Coach probably has a little more he can enlighten us on.
Yeah. Coach Bradberry, same question to you, man. What's the differences you see in the 4-2-5 and the 4-3?
The 4-2-5 for us is just kind of what Coach Simpson said. It lets us be a little more versatile on how we want to attack people, and it keeps it really simple for our guys. Like the front 6 really don't have to change as much. Getting a guy in, if you got the tight end wing stuff to add 7 and 8 into the run fits, we can get, you can fix that with the back end guys per se. 4-3 is pretty standard. Like you can get them into 4-1s, 2 high shell stuff. With that 4-2-5, we can be a 1 high, we can be a 3 high, we can be a 2 high. We can be cover 0. So it lets us kind of be more multiple, but keeping it simple for your front guys, which I like. So that's kind of the differences for us. That's why, because we can bump into a 4-3 look if we needed to. It lets us kind of It's kind of like the 3-4, being able to bump into the 3 stack look if they needed to. So it makes it multiple, I think. So that's how we use it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I won't say the 4-3 is antiquated, but it was brought around for a reason, and it was to stop old school option football, right? Like triple option football, and that's where it gained its popularity and shutting down those defenses back in the Miami days. And I'm not so sure that that's needed in the same function anymore. There's very few teams that are running old school triple option. We're still getting a triple option. I mean, you're still going to get RPO'd. Kenny has now broken the world open with running the quarterback off the backside of any stinking play, right? It's not zone read anymore. It's run read. If you're running the ball, you're reading something. So I think there is still at least option football, if not triple option, is out there. We're doing stuff with it. But like Kenny said, you've got to have that nickel type player who can stick with a slot receiver who used to be a fullback or used to be a tailback. You know what I mean? Even in the wishbone, that would have been a halfback. Now it's a little speedy dude, so you've got to have a defender to stick with him and also come and play for us in the run. I just think the 4-3 is a lot harder to coach. I think the angles make it different. You're talking a lot of 2-gapping with your with your linebackers, because you're telling a guy in the box he's also got to play force, right? You're boxing all your run plays with a dude that's already in the box, which of course is a lot harder than what us 4-2-5 guys like to do, and just let those overhangs come and turn it back to everyone else who's spilling. So I think angles and blitz angles and stuff get changed up a bunch. The 4-2-5 is kind of bland. The 4-3 you can fly around and send some crazy blitzes, and you get nice angles. And America's fire zone blitz is everybody's favorite thing to talk about when they start talking 4-3, and that's a lot harder to do in a 4-2-5. And I think other just technical differences, how you're playing that strong side defensive end. If the opponent gives you a tight end, 4-2-5, Coach, I'm not sure how you do it, but we always put our strong end in a 6, and he generally owns that inside gap, right? I'm never gonna make him force. To where in a 4-3, that defensive end is in a 9. And he owns the outside, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. You're going to ask him to box because the backer right behind him is probably going to fit the gap right between, right underneath. So just some technical difficulties there in technical differences in how we're playing those guys. Beyond that, man, it's really just kind of alignments, right?
And personnel too. I think in a 4-3, you better have a freak at Mike. Like if you're going to run a 4-3 and be good, that guy at Mike's got to be really, really talented. And then your Sam and your Will, a lot of times those 4-3s will morph. They'll morph into a 4-2, depending on what you give them. But to me, you got to have 3 dudes run a 4-2-5. You got to have the 3 safety outside linebacker kids, however you're playing that. So they don't have to be. But here's the deal: sometimes it's easier to find 3 DBs on a team that can kind of run and do different things than it is to find a kid that can plug a gap and cover. Like that can be tough to find. So as you're kind of looking at these 2 defenses, if you're going to run a 4-2-5, or if you're going to run some kind of 3 high safety-ish look, all those looks, you're going to need those positions become uber important. Like your overhang safety, those are kind of, we're going to start an end there. But I might be able to get away with just some thumpers at linebacker in that defense. Like they don't have to run and go cover stuff. They're going to play A gap to C gap. And so you might be able to put some thicker, slower linebackers. If you're in a 4-3, that Mike's got to be able to play almost C gap to C gap. Like he's got to be able to fit all the way there. And like think about Ray Lewis, and those are the guys you kind of think about in a 4-3. Where if you're in a 4-2-5, you're thinking more the Ed Reed type guys that can kind of, or Polamalu from the Steelers back in the day, can kind of come in a box and come back. So it's just different types of kids as you're trying to morph it. And Coach, he may be able to talk more on that subject, but in my mind, that's where I would start in a 4-2-5 is your edge, linebacker, safety type kids. That's where I'm putting my best kids, and then I'm building from there.
Yep. We like to put, the free safety, just those 3 safeties. I mean, you don't have to play a 3 high safety look by any means, but you're going to have a strong, a weak, and a free, and those are your hybrid players. Those are the guys that are doing both. They're playing run and pass on every single play. You better make them good kids. All right, so question 2 here. Why pick an even front over the 3-4? Coach Bradberry, we're going to let you get started here because you said you just made this conversion. So, why even front over a 3-4?
One was simplifying and making it everybody have one gap for us is why we moved to that. And then kind of building it around what we have coming up in our junior high. We got a bunch of linemen that might be able to 2 platoon at our level, which is huge, and get some of those skill guys not having to play both ways, which we got to do a little bit this year, and we saw a major difference in our offensive output with that. So that's kind of why we made the conversion to it, was the simplicity and being able to add another lineman out there to help stop the run.
Awesome. Yeah, those are definitely good. I mean, personnel, I think, is where everyone should start, right? It doesn't matter what system you want to run. I mean, we've been talking about the 4-3 tonight, and in this episode, it's really about the 4-2-5, but it's called the Miami 4-3 for a reason. And if you don't have Miami kids, and I'm not talking about even today's Miami, I'm talking those kids, right? You mentioned Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, like those were the guys that were actually there running it, and that's 2 of the most popular guys at their positions because of how good they were, right? So you need to have those dudes on the field. So I love hearing a coach that says, "Hey, personnel dictated what I'm going to coach." That's a wonderful answer, especially small school ball where you never know, man. Like you absolutely never know what you're going to have.
Well, 3-4 to me, the biggest difference in 3-4 and a 4-2-5 or any 4 front. So a 3 front versus a 4 front is if you're going to see a bunch of 2 tight end looks, or you're going to see some tight end unbalanced. Man, we run the 3-4. That's tough for us. Like you come out with a tight end, and that changes the game for us. And what happens is we end up getting in a 4 front with our personnel. But our personnel is not really made for that. So if we were going to see multiple teams that were running what I would call heavier offenses, that could be like what I run offense, like a tight end wing, that could be a tight end fullback, that could be that could be full house, that could be name it, that could be whatever. You probably are going to end up with a 4 front regardless. So you might as well start off with that as your base. If we were seeing that, we're seeing where I live, we're seeing majority spread. Like when you got to win games to win state championships, we're generally seeing spread. However, I've coached small school ball before, and I've coached in old school areas where now you are seeing, and it's starting to gain more popularity, where you're starting to see the tight end make a comeback, the fullbacks make a comeback, you're honestly better off in a 4-front against those teams. That's just, you're better off having bigger bodies out there that are comfortable in that world. So to me, that would be the argument for going to a 4-front as opposed to an odd front. And an odd front, Coach mentioned it, you have one more skill kid on the field. So the argument for running an odd front most of the time is we're putting 8 guys that can run and 3D linemen. And you're watching a lot of teams like the NFL that are on the tight front. The Dolphins do this a lot. 3 big D linemen that are going to kind of 2-gap and then athletes everywhere else. That's the argument for a 3-front. The argument for the 4-front is I can get an extra big, thick body in there and handle that tight end that's coming at me. And now I still have 7 athletes, but I'm not asking a 165-pound outside linebacker to come down at a 9 technique. I'm going to go ahead and play a 240-pound defensive end at that spot, and that's kind of the trade-off in my mind between an odd or an even front. And then in the odd front, you got to have 4 guys. You got to have 2 outside linebackers and 2 safeties that can do a lot of things. In a 4-front, you probably only need 2 or 3 guys. If you're a 4-2-5, you're going to need those 3 hybrid guys we talked about. In a 4-3, you're going to need the Mike and the safeties. So you only need 3 guys that can do a lot. In a 3-front defense, I think you need at least 4, both outside linebackers and both safeties. So just those would be the arguments in my mind towards going to a 4-front versus a 3-front.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff you said there. I, as a guy that's trying to study both sides of the ball, that's the first thing I know is about 3 fronts. Is every time there's a tight end, you bring them down into a 4-front anyway. Yeah. So you might as well take advantage of that, right? You had another comment in there that I really piqued my interest, but I don't remember what it was. So that's okay. I think that I look at defensive fronts a little bit different. So some people say personnel wise, well, we have a whole bunch of defensive linemen. So I want to be a 4-front, but I kind of run my 4-front different. I want those defensive ends to be more of a safety type, right? Maybe even an inside linebacker type. I want to be a little quicker. I like to kind of speed the game up there on the D line. And so I can make do with less D linemen, but have more people with their hand in the dirt. Well, I figure like if you go to an odd front, you need 3 absolute dudes that are D linemen, right? Because they're going to be anchoring double teams every single play, or getting washed down by big dudes.
Yeah, like we're a 3-4, but we're undersized, so they better be super quick. Yeah,
right. Because you're probably asking them to play 4 eyes. The tight fronts made a huge surge here in the last few years or so. And then you got to start thinking about, what are your backers are you going to have? Because now you're 2-gapping backers, and Coach Bradberry said something about that earlier. He switched out of his because he didn't want to have to 2-gap his backers. And that's another thing. Like, you need 3 stud D linemen, and you got to have backers who can 2-gap, which is not always what we all have. So I think that the 4-2 is a more simple defense to teach. It's easier for new coaches. If you're a young head coach and you're basically developing a staff from scratch, it's an easier defense for you to teach them, to teach the players, and everybody can get developed. And then you can mess around being multiple front or whatever. So I think that it definitely plays into that. Not a lot of talent in coaching or not a lot of talent in the playing development or playing realm. So last question here. How do you handle multiple formation teams? And Coach Simpson, we'll start with you here.
Okay. This is tough for me. I'm curious to hear what Coach says on this because, in my opinion, the 3-4 shines in this area. Like, this is where the 3-4 really shines is there's so limited adjustments you have to make. Like, that's an area where I would argue the 3-4 probably is ahead of the 4-2-5. It's when you're playing teams that are going to show you empty and all kinds of junk. You can just bump guys over. Because you're in a 3-4, it's really adjustable. However, the 4-2-5 offers that too. We mentioned it kind of on the first question. The 4-3 is going to struggle with those teams. Like a 4-3 team is going to have a really hard time against a team that's going to show multiple formations, multiple personnel groups. You're going to be able to manipulate that defense pretty easily. 4-2-5's got they got a little bit extra they can throw at you. Like, in my opinion, you're making your adjustments with your back 5. So you're keeping that stagnant 6-man box, which makes it really simple on your kids. You have a couple rules with tight ends and stuff, but for the most part, you're going to keep a 6-man box. So all your rules and all the time you've got to spend on formation recognition, which if you're a DC in today's game, you're probably spending 20% of your practice time on formation recognition every single week. Like, in my opinion, that's just kind of the way the game is going. Yeah. You're only having to do that in this defense with the back five. You may have to work one of the inside linebackers on extreme overload cases, but for the most part, when you're going through formation recognition, you can take your 6-man box and send them over there and let them work inside drill. And your back five guys are the ones that are having to make adjustments. Where the 3-4, you're having to make it with at least 6 guys, if not 7. So it's 4-2-5, like you mentioned. You guys have kept using the word simple, 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 simple. In my opinion, the most simple defense is the 4-3. However, it's the most manipulative. I can manipulate that more as an offensive coordinator. The 4-2-5 is the next most simple defense, in my opinion, but you do have some answers. The 3-4 defense is probably the hardest one to put in and do right because there's so many other moving pieces, but it does shine against those multiple formations because you have so many athletes out there. So that's kind of my simple overview of it. 4-2-5, to me, those back five guys have got to make you right. And so if you're seeing trips, quads, empty, tight end wing, tight end close, trips, all the stuff you're going to see, those back five guys have got to kind of know what's going on. But your front six, for the most part, they don't have to know anything. They just have to know what is my base rule, what is my gap I'm fitting, what's my responsibility in coverage if I'm one of the two linebackers. But the word simple, I think you guys have kind of hammered home on this. And I think I would kind of go back to that. Like if you were a guy looking for a simple defense, some simple fixes, I think the 4-2-5 is going to do really, really well when you're going against multiple looks.
Yep. Perfect. Coach Bradberry, back to you, man. How do you handle multiple formation teams?
When we get multiple people, first thing we're looking at is how we're going to handle the trip side of the field and then formation into the boundary. Are we going to bump out a backer? Are we going to, check roll to trips? Are we playing what we call special to the trips? We're kind of palmsing the inside two, manning up one. Like Kenny said, it's not overcomplicated. You can just use your back five to fix it all. So which makes it easy for run fits for us. So in a way there, our backside, like our bandit side and corner, our boundary, as some people call it in the 4-2-5, there we have some adjustments there and some automatics. I heard Kenny talking about automatics the other day. We have some automatics to those multiple formations. So, and just through your scouting report, what we're going to do to those things. So,
as you're going through it, Coach, I'm assuming this is standard, I think, for every defensive coordinator, but like we put formations in families. Like trips could be, there's lots of families of trips. It could be trips bunch, trips wide. It could be trips with a tight end. It could be tight end wing that makes a trip. So but that's all one rule for your DBs. Like that's trips. Right. We may have to adjust something small, or single is always single. It could be a single receiver. It could be a nub tight end. It could be a nub wing. Whatever it is, that guy is single. This is our rule to single. Or twins. Right. Our rule to twins, whether they're wide, tight end, and a split, whatever that looks like, we kind of put that in a family grouping. I'm imagining with your back five, is that kind of how you're handling those rules?
Yes, yeah. The trips probably gives, even in the 3-4, that's what probably gives us the most fits. Balance formations, not so much. So what are they doing? Do I need to roll sky on the backside? Do I need to play cloud? Do I need to play a solo? Whatever we need to do back there on the single side. That's where we can make more adjustments. Really on the front side to those autos, it's either this or it's that. Yeah. So it makes it really easy for our guys.
And then where I've had success against 4-2-5, I'm curious what you do with this, is I've caught a lot of those 4-2-5 guys that have that automatic where they're playing their bonus guy always to the field. Like they're always going to
Mm-hmm.
stick that bonus guy to the field. So we'll just go tight end wing to the boundary until the cows come home. You know what I'm saying? So like, how are you guys kind of handling that stuff?
If you're going to start doing that, we're definitely going to roll down. It'll be your traditional, probably 4-4 look
Right.
for us. And whatever you're doing off of that, just depending on what you want to do. Like we had a team running the pin and pull stuff or buck sweep stuff out of empty, which gives you fits with the 4-4 in there. So finding your guys that can set that edge can get tough at our level because you don't always have the personnel for that bandit safety to roll down into the box. But when we converted to it, my old head coach, that's what he said. We just find the overhang and run away from it. Well, I'm like, well, we don't sit back there at 12 yards with the other guy. We'll spin him down and get into a 4-4 look at times. And you've heard Joe say this. We call them safeties just to make them feel faster. They're really outside linebackers.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
That's right.
but that's kind of how we handle that stuff. We just like it's, and what I like about it is it can get each year that you do it, you can add more to it, make it more multiple, a little more complicated. But like this year, it was in phase 1, so that we played a lot of base, maybe had one blitz, maybe. And if that was what we got in our formation report, but covering the multiple formations is easy, I think, because you just use those 5 to kind of manipulate what you're doing.
Yeah. I think that 4-2-5 is kind of where I cut my teeth, and the way we handle multiple formations is, Kenny's kind of what you said. You just put them into little buckets, right? And so, we had to have a condensed edge rule, so we knew how to flip because I don't want my corner being the force guy. I definitely want to swap him with a safety. Trips checks, they kind of end up all the ways. I think every defense has fits with things like ace or, those too tight looks. And so you've just got to have rules for that. But just like offense, when you're trying to teach an offensive line how to face any number of fronts, I think you kind of do the same thing with that D line, and then just spill everything and make sure you have a force guy. And once the good thing about 4-2-5 is it's very easy to get gap sound and keep it that way, right? You don't have to be some blitz guru drawing up crazy stuff in the sand. You can just play base. You have a guy for every zone, every gap. There's nothing there shouldn't be a glaring weakness in the 4-2-5. Now, we all know that the weak side flat, wherever you don't put your bonus guy, against any kind of a twins look, that's going to be a weakness of yours, especially if you're trying to run a too high look. But that's just part of it, especially if you're getting like quarters. Coach, I heard you talking about sky and cloud. So, you're running quarters, especially first year in the 4-2-5, like that's a brave move but the simplicity of that core defense, that front 6, allows you to spend all that extra time with your backside, and you can do stuff like run quarters, which is way more fun to coach than being a cover 1, cover 3 team. Now, it's even more fun to win football games. So if you're losing to have fun coaching, you don't need the quarters in there. But I think you guys basically hammered it. Just put things in the buckets, give kids rules. It's no different than coaching O-line, and then let those back 5 guys make you right, and personnel them to do that as well. So, well, sweet guys. We're kind of banging on through this one. I'm having some connectivity issues, so I don't know if you guys are seeing that or not. It's kind of going nuts over here, but so we'll go ahead and start trying to close out here. Coach Simpson, why don't you tell us our lesson for what not to do as a coach?
Yeah. So to me, I would try to always do something here that will catch on. I think the word simple was brought up a bunch right here. So here's my lesson for what not to do is try to make things hard so you seem smart. Coach kind of mentioned that during the intro where you go play college. And so you hear this, and I'm not saying college coaches are immune to it. Sometimes college coaches are the worst at this, where this kid's 18, now he knows everything. And so they teach 35 different coverages and they use words kids don't understand because they've heard it at a clinic or heard it on Twitter or whatever it is. And so we're going to say this stuff. And, I've always heard, instead of doing that, instead of making things more complex, talk to the lowest IQ in the room. And a lot of times that's me. So you talk to like who is the lowest one you need to, and that way everybody's catching what you're saying. So the goal as a coach should be to make complex things simple. To me, that's genius. That is genius at any level of any business you do, especially in sports or in education, is if you can make complex things simple for your kids, you are a genius coach. Unfortunately, a lot of times as coaches, we try to do the opposite. Something that should be really simple, like force, like being a force player, we have to use 55 words for it and confuse a kid and make something that should be really easy hard. Like, think about if he was in the third grade, you'd say, don't let him on the edge. Now we're going to come back and do something different. So to me, that's the lesson for today, is to keep things as simple as you can. Take the complex and make it simple.
Awesome. Well, we're having some more technical difficulties, so that's fun. This is a good episode. It's a good episode to remind yourself to always troubleshoot all the things and have contingency plans, right? Even in the 4-2-5 defense. It's good. All right, guys. One last time, I just want to mention you guys, Ace Sports is offering you an opportunity to fundraise like a maniac. I know Coach Simpson used them. I don't know, Coach, did you get your turf first or your video board first?
We did turf first. If I could go back and redo it, I'd probably do it together.
There you go. So, call Mark, call Ryan. If you're in a small town, okay, and you want turf and you can't afford it because it's expensive, right? They offer you a way to make a lot of money in a reasonable amount of time. And now that's not a 20-year plan to get turf. It might be in your 5-year plan, right? And you can pay with it the cash that you raised by fundraising with that board. So kind of think about that. What big ticket item do you need? Reach out to Mark or Ryan. You can, I think all of Mark's info is in that ad at the beginning of the episode. So you can go back and reach that. And then once again, we always got to mention our guy, Zach Welchman with Procom. If you're needing any kind of headset needs right now, need to get them changed, need to get them, add one or whatever. It's a good time to switch. Go over to Procom. It's procomwelchman.com.
Well, he's got
Coach Simpson, you already mentioned.
Yeah, heads up on the Procom guy too. I think he's got the little thing you can put in the quarterback's helmet now. Procom is selling that thing, so really good for 7-on-7. I think would be to have something like that.
And Coach Simpson, we're not. I texted him this morning actually, and he said he doesn't think we're 2 years out from that in high school.
I agree.
With college now accepting it, much like that kickoff that the NFL just changed. Guys, we're probably not too far off from that at the high school level either. So might as well have a system that lets you add that on the fly versus having to buy a new one when that comes around, Social media. Coach Bradberry, where can we, if somebody wanted to reach out and talk to you about the 4-2-5 or 8 Air Warriors, where would they reach out to you?
My email, BradyBradberry@gmail.com, all lowercase. And then I'm on Facebook right now. I haven't been on any of those other things, which is rare for a younger guy, I guess. But I'm not on TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. But you can reach me through Facebook. That's one of my favorite ones. So that's about the two places you can get me.
Perfect. You can catch me on Twitter /X at Coach Chambo OK. The email is chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Once again, Coach Bradberry is a guy, a living testament to, if you want to come on the show and you got something to offer and bring to the table, reach out. We'll get you on here. No matter if you're 20 miles away from me or 2,000, Coach Simpson, where can we find you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, fbcoachsimpson.com, or fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com for my email.
Wonderful. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when new episodes are out. Coach Bradberry, man, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing some of your knowledge about the defense, and we hope to have you back on again.
Thanks for letting me.
We'll have to do it before football season, because then we'll really get away trade
exactly.
secrets. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Thank you guys so much.
We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.